Okay, hey guys, I'm back. Welcome to the second video in my channel of Children's of wow, today I can't even pronounce the title of my own book, Children's of the Galut, which is the series name of the book I'm writing that is a fantasy based somewhat on Jewish folklore. I'm hoping you'll be able to hear this recording because I was unable to do it at my house or at the library. I don't even want to think about that fiasco. So I am doing it at Starbucks, rather close to where the baristas are, but it was where there was space. I may pause occasionally to warn people that I'm recording and that if they talk, I need their permission to put this on. But other than that, I think we're good to go. So I'm pleased to announce that I have finally, I have a working title for the book that I forgot to tell you about last time. The title of the book is, it's called My Father's Tower, and we'll be explaining more of why it's called that and the general plot today. I also apologize for the bad lighting. It is supposed to be a rainstorm day today, and I'm sitting by the window with no real good lighting on me, so you've got all the background light, but it's still gray. Okay, so last week I told you all about the folktale that inspired the story. For those of you who are watching this video, but for some reason haven't seen that one, it will be the first video in our series. There was a mistake that I made, though. I left out a very important part of the story. I want to thank my Aunt Tina for pointing this out. When the man went to sea, before the man went to sea, his father had made him promise to never go to sea. And he made a promise on his father's deathbed. And then a few months later, a ship came in with goods from his father's business ventures, and they're like, and he's like, wow, this is a lot of stuff. And they're like, oh, this is nothing compared to his holdings overseas. You have to come and, go get them. It's 10 times more than this. And he's like, but I promised my father, I won't, I will. And eventually he decides to go. There are two different versions of why. In one version, it was because his father's creditors were pressing him, and he didn't have a choice in his mind. The other version is that he just simply, couldn't withstand the temptation. So he broke his deathbed promise to his father. And then if you observe the story afterwards, he's broken every vow he makes since then. He breaks his vow to the Demon King to not go into the bedroom. He takes the vow to the Demon King's daughter by not returning home. And he also breaks his vow in a way to his first wife. You can kind of argue that he didn't have a choice in that one, but it came about because he broke his vow to the Demon King in the first place, and the entire shipwreck came about because he wasn't supposed to be at sea. So that's something that is important because it sets the tone not only for that story, but in this story for everything that comes afterwards. So I told you about the backstory and a little bit about what happened. Let me tell you about the plot. The two main characters in this book are Shulka and Kava. Kava is a little bit older. She is the daughter of the man's first wife. In the book I named him Peleus. She was raised by her mother and the member of her household. It's actually a fairly wealthy household, one of the wealthiest households in the village. It's a pretty valid, there's a lot of people in it for a very small village. But I am having plenty of fun, like making a list of everyone who lives there, which keeps constantly needing to be adding to, and just making a list of everyone in the book, which will make it a lot easier. And to show you to the extreme I'm going, one of the rabbis, the one that you see, has, I think, 17 children. The last three of which are actually named Esther, Milka, and Hadassah. because by the time they got to their last three triplets, they were out of energy to name anything. For those of you who are not Jewish or Jewish and don't get the joke, Esther is the name of Queen Esther from the Bible. Hadassah is the name that is considered to be her actual birth name, because Esther is based on a Persian god, so it's said to be a name that she takes to hide her identity. And Malka means queen. I'm just going to so but there'll be more on those later. She is a scholar and a lover of poetry. She's 13. She loves books. She loves reading. She loves sneaking into her father's library. As I might have mentioned before, her father was a scholar, and she loves reading his books, and she loves reading his magic books because this is a fantasy. And I will wait for that blender to finish before continuing. The books that she's most interested in, however, are a group of books that contain what's called the Songs of Life, which is a mix of spiritualism and mystery and magic. I didn't want to straight out use Kabbalah because I'm not old enough to be studying it, and the line between Kabbalah and magic is a really complex topic in Judaism. The actual books are theoretical Kabbalah, and those are very esoterical and are generally not treated as magic. Practical Kabbalah, which is the making of amulets and things to keep people away, to keep, evil spirits away and stuff like that, is considered, and other things as well, is considered closer to magic. It's still generally not rendered it, but it basically is. Again, this is this weird line that I'm stepping around, that I just have to give into the fact that it's a fantasy. So there's similarities between the Songs of Life and the actual Kabbalah, but it's not the same thing. It's not meant to be taken as entirely the same thing. It's just basically a stand-in for something that I feel more comfortable, that I don't feel comfortable using for religious and for informational reasons. In fact, if I did have the knowledge to use the Kabbalah, I could not actually put it down in the book, because despite things being published on it, you're really not supposed to learn it without a teacher, and you're not supposed to tell anyone who's not ready for it. Like the mystical traditions of cultures all over the world, this concept that all information should be available to anyone who wants it is a very Western, I would say very, very American, and very new concept. I'm going to move the microphone closer to my face. That's awkward. I'll just keep this here. Okay. You get a scary picture of my face. And if I don't hold it right, my boobs. Did I just say that on... Okay, I guess I did. This is going to be a long video. The premise of the story revolves around... let me track back to Kava. Kava is also a poet, and a very good poet. The dictates of Hebrew poetry, which I still have to look up, are very strict. That's specifically medieval poetry, and this is a loose timeline. It could be anywhere from, the Spanish Inquisition on to the mid-1800s, and includes communities from all over the place in that village. So there are actually 8 different Jewish communities that are within the village, but they are not allowed to have a new synagogue or even use a new building for the synagogue because of the Queen's orders. So they all use the same synagogue and just take turns as to which group leads the service every week. She's a renowned poet, and she has colleagues in the field that are older than her. The other character... Whoa. Okay, I'm going to try putting this back now. The character that is the main viewpoint character. Wow, no place I put this works. Let's just hope this stays on and can be heard. Okay, so the main viewpoint character you see is from Shulka's point of view. Shulka is the daughter of Heleus, and Heleus is his demon wife, the princess. As I said last time, she can't bear to look at their child after, he refuses to give her divorce or come back, and leaves them with the humans to raise. She is raised by the village midwife. Those of you familiar with Jewish folktales might know why this is a little bit of a problem. And to illustrate that, I will tell you the story, briefly a story of why. There once was a woman that was had really bad labor, and nothing was working, and they decided to bring her some milk to soothe her. And the midwife finds a hair in the milk. The name of this story, by the way, is The Hair in the Milk. It's another one that you can find by Howard Schwartz in many of his publications. But I believe, I know it's in at least two. I think, at least one. I swear that's not my only source text, but I can't find my others. But she sees a really, really long black hair. It's not the texture or the color or the length of any of the other women standing in the room. So she immediately assumes something up. She's a very clever midwife. She pours the milk into a little jar, puts a capper on, and starts shaking it really badly. So badly that a voice from inside the bottle calls out for help and to stop shaking it. And she demands to know who's inside the bottle. And she's like, you know very well who's inside the bottle. And she's like, well, tell me. And she says, I'm Lillith. And Lillith here in her traditional role as a mother and baby killer. She begs to be let out. And she's like, I'm not letting you out. You're putting the mother and baby in danger. And she's like, well, I swear I won't hurt them. And she's like, swear it by a particular binding oath on 3 angels, and that's explained when I put the thing up. But basically there are 3 angels that if their names are invoked, she has to leave and run away from for at least till the next day. And she's like, okay. And she's like, I guess. And she's like, also swear that you will work for the mother for 3 years and the family for 5 and will not come and harm anyone in this village in that amount of time, and neither will your children. And Lilith refuses. The woman threatens to throw the bottle into a box and throw it out to sea. And I know we said the demons live underwater, but sometimes the stories don't always match up. And eventually Lilith relents. So midwives and demons, or at least Lilith, don't have a very good history together. In fact, the midwife they have watch her in this book is that very midwife. The name I give her is Alta Yehudit. She is a really old woman who lives on the far side of town, and luckily she has the rabbi's 3 daughters as her apprentice, because they really need a few more midwives. There's just not enough people, and she lives way on the far end of town and refuses to move because it's her grandfather's house. Yes, I will probably be eating and drinking during this episode because I'm diabetic and need protein. So she's placed with the midwife. The midwife doesn't quite see her as her daughter, but sees her as, someone she cares about. She sees herself as her mentor. They actually live together. They get along pretty well. Shulka's been moody lately. She's just turned 12. Kava's just turned 13. But yeah, so Shulka, the village doesn't quite know what to do. Oh, by the way, she's named Shulka because the name is used as a feminine form of Solomon, and I will tell you the whole cycles of Ashmodai, the king of demons, and King Solomon in another episode. It will be very important backstory if I ever write a book about Ashmodai. But Solomon and Ashmodai had some problems. Solomon basically kidnapped him, forced him to build the temple, and was supposed to let him go afterwards, and didn't. And the demon cries out to God to, avenge him, and God does so, and Solomon goes off on a lot of adventures trying to get home, and he ends up wanting to destroy Ashmodai, but, the angels won't let him because Solomon broke his word. But they basically named that as a charm to keep the demons away in case they get angry for what happened. She does not see her mother. Her mother will not see her. Her grandmother really is only interested in the legitimate children in her court. She and Ashmodai both have a bunch of illegitimate children of humans, and, if you're not there in court to be an issue of succession, she doesn't want to deal with you. She says that, but she has an owl she's sent to protect Shulka, which owls really aren't very good advisors for preteens. It's not a particularly useful measure, but it's a point of comedy. The midwife really doesn't want her to see her grandfather. Her grandfather is determined, the king of demons is determined to be a good, father figure to his granddaughter. So she shows up on Wednesdays and Fridays. He shows up, and he's only got an allotted time to spend with her. But that's just the basics of the characters. This is going to run way over. So I apologize for that. So the Helias, meanwhile, he's left the community. He's upset about that, but he will not go and make things right. He's at this point scared that the daughter of the Demon King, who I've named Asnat, is probably going to destroy him if he even tries to. And more to the point, he's angry, he's embarrassed, and he's humiliated, and he's lost a lot of power, a lot of position, a lot of prestige, and the whole time he was at Ashmodai's court, he found that he really liked those things. So he goes off, and he decides that he's going to go study magic full-time. There is a magic school in the kingdom. I haven't named it. At this point, it's just referred to as the Tower. Or if I didn't name it, it's in early notes that I can't find. And the Tower's not a bad place. It's not full of bad people. There are some. It's definitely not filled with fellow Jews. The longer he's away from his community, the more people are kind of saying, hey, you should convert. You should try to fit in better. It'll make things go away. It'll make the pain go away. You might as well be one of us fully. And he does this. I'm not sure if he's a religious man or not at that point. It doesn't actually make him any more accepted than he was already. They're happy he did it, but really they still see him as an outsider. For those of you who are wondering why I chose this specifically because that was the experience of Jews in Spain who converted, even those who converted before the order of expulsion. And to be honest, they didn't take those conversions very seriously for the most part either. It was an open joke. And they were really, for the most part, only done either to gain status or in cases where their lives were threatened because there was basically a pogrom going on. So he's away. He learns he's a very good scholar, remember. And he eventually becomes the chief magician to the queen. By this point, he's been dealing with his anger so badly that he has become a self-hating Jew. He's become an anti-Semite. And he kind of uses his position to influence the queen in that manner. It doesn't take a lot of work, quite honestly. But eventually he decides, and what he really decides is that if his community can't, if he can't make himself be accepted in the village, he's going to try to make the entire village convert one way or another, and then he won't be alone anymore. It's kind of weird, messed up thinking, but he's kind of a messed up character to begin with, let's be honest. And he decides to do this, and he decides to do this because he still has the legal custody of both children. Now the queen has been making him pay basically child support to his first wife. Remember, he didn't divorce either of them. And he's been paying it. His wife, who was the one who always handled his business so he could study, that's actually a long tradition in Judaism. The woman works and the men stay in the study hall studying Torah. You don't see this all the time, but you see a lot of echoes of this if you look at shtetls in the 1800s. One of my ancestors in the U.S., the early ones that came over, was a Talmud scholar, and his wife worked to support him. Well, Jewish women have always worked outside the home or through the home. So she manages all of that, his accounts, and she's doing fine. And so every time he gives her money, she simply just gives it to charity. Partly to help people and partly out of protest. But he decides that his two daughters are going to come study magic with him, and he has the legal authority to make that happen. He also has, a bunch of guards who also have the ability to make that happen. And so these two girls are alone in the magic school, and they are doing their best to survive with not entirely fitting in, but trying to fit in. They get along with some students and not others. And they're slowly learning. They're really good students. I should point out, though, Shulka has this little problem. So Kava is fully literate. And she reads everything. She probably speaks multiple languages. In fact, I know she does. Shulka, on the other hand, is a brilliant storyteller. She's basically unofficially apprenticed to the village storytellers when all of this happens. And the problem is, though, she can't read. It's not said explicitly in the book because no one would have any way of diagnosing it, but she has a really bad case of dyslexia, and there's no one there trained to teach her. This is really awkward for her because it makes her feel stupid, because the village school teacher pretty much hates her. Well, she thinks she hates her. He's really frustrated because she is obviously very, very, very bright, but cannot, she can't read anything, and here he is, this great scholar. But they're at the school. The teacher assigned to teach him, I'm thinking the school is divided into cohorts. Their cohort is taught by a man called, I'm pronouncing his name Albaran, but I'll have to double check. It's actually an Arabic name for a star that means foremost, because he's good at astrology. He himself is not Arab. He is one of Helias's minions, but he's not a bad guy. He agrees with what Helias is doing and why, but he's really not a jerk about it. And he's a pretty good teacher. He's the de facto mentor figure when it comes to education for these characters. And slowly he'll start to realize why what Helias is doing is bad. But that'll take books. At least that's the plan. That's the other thing. Nothing I say in these recordings is set in stone till a book is published. Everything's free to be manipulated because writing works that way. So they're doing pretty good. They've made some friends. They've made some friends. One of them is a girl from Spain named Fortuna. The other one's name I'd have to look up because I'm not sure how to pronounce it either. It looks like Yıldız. She's Turkish. The four of them have all been assigned to dorm. This is dorm 70, and nobody else wants to take the dorm because it's where all the weird things happen. I should also point out, for reasons I haven't figured out yet, Kava has the ability to see ghosts. They find her when she was a child. At one point, she got possessed by one. This particular ghost was a Divik, which is definitely material for another video. Shulka has the ability to see demons and angels around, but she doesn't understand that other people don't see these things, and she feels like Elijah when he comes at Passover. But she's never really talked about it except when she was younger, where everyone thought she was just pretending. But they go to the weird room, and everything's going pretty fine until all of a sudden, all of the laws in the land have vanished. Every recorded instance of a law is gone. The reason for this is kind of complicated. In Jewish beliefs, there is a belief that the laws of the Torah, the laws of the Bible, only apply to Jewish people. And we're the only ones judged on them. You don't have to study Torah or be Jewish to be a good person, to get into heaven, etc. What God expects out of everyone is for them to follow the 7 laws given to Noah. Among them are have a fair court system and weights and measurements, and fair laws. Don't commit sexual assault. Don't steal. Don't murder. Things like that. Basic human morality. Also in there is only worship God, and whether or not that includes other Abrahamic religions other than Islam, the opinions vary depending on what time and where the rabbi who's making the ruling is. But those are the laws by which everyone's based. And someone has basically deleted all 7 of those laws from everywhere in the kingdom. So the problem is without laws, you can't arrest people for crimes. And if you can't arrest people for crimes, then you've got a serious problem in your justice system. And so at this point, everyone's freaking out. It also means that it's dangerous for the village because, on the one hand, there's nothing stopping an angry mob from getting in and causing havoc. And in addition to that, they still have the laws of the Torah, so they still have laws and nobody else does, so that makes people kind of suspicious. Heleus is playing this close to his chest. He does not know he does not know what's going on. He knows he can use it to his advantage, but he also knows as a minister, and also I should point out, he's also the headmaster of the school. I don't want to use that term, I just need to find another term that is in principle. He's in charge of the school, and he's actually a really good principal of the school. He is concerned about his student safety, and that becomes important later. And at that point, so things are getting bad, and the story involves to include a murder, an unexpected death, some weird magic, and haunting. And that's about all I can tell you about the plot right now. Next time, I will talk to you about some of the other characters. There is the midwife, there is Ashmedai, I'm working on his care file right now. There is their teacher, And so as these profiles become available, I will give you little insights into them as we go. If you have any requests for folktales you'd like to have covered, or a specific question you have about something in an earlier video, or about something in Jewish folklore you're not familiar with, feel free to contact me so I can include it in the next video. If you're interested in any of this stuff, feel free to subscribe. You don't have to, but I'd appreciate it. And thank you very much for tuning in, and I hope this video is better than it looks right now. Bye.